My research began with the question, why is traditional education failing so many children and disproportionately failing black students the most? I wondered what are some possible solutions to this problem. My initial solution was to make more parents and students knowledgeable of alternatives to traditional schools like STEM schools and homeschooling. What I learned is that students start off eager to learn, and believe it or not, black students are eager to learn too, like every other student. Students typically want to learn. Then there comes a point when students lose interest. Students losing interest is a problem because it results in academic failure. And academic failure results in future failure in life. And academic failure is a much larger problem for black and minority students. Some people believe that the lack of racial pride established in the classroom and the lack of life relevancy in the subject matter causes a loss of interest. Educators are encountering angry kids that hate schools these days. So what? We make schools interesting. But what about the kids' communities? Some people think that desegregation was the worst thing that happened to the black community, while others feel that it allowed blacks to gain access to a better education, which it did. But did we want the same education as whites have, or just the same future opportunities? Did everything really turn out equal, or did it just help a little bit? What it looks like is that they have resegregated the schools, and the black community is far, far, far lost. Now, let us not forget that students around the globe wish that they had the access to education that blacks in America have. But what they don't see is the larger society, and that the education in urban schools is doing almost more damage to the black students and the communities that they live in. There have been many protests around educational equality, but what we should be pushing for is educational equity, because it is not fair to give one student an education that fails them but doesn't fail another. There have been many programs with an effort to reduce the academic failure for black students, and some have helped in different ways, but most of these efforts are just band-aiding a much larger problem. They're putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. The latest effort to reduce student failure has been to reduce the amount of testing that students have to do and eliminate some standardized testing. It's been proven that some of the standardized tests are biased based on racial demographics and economic status. Now, if you're giving kids a test that is unfair, it seems like the intention is to make sure some kids pass and some kids fail. Grading and testing serve a purpose to assess student knowledge, but it's clear that they're categorizing students as well. And students are not standardized. What I'm saying is that the intentions behind a lot of the things that they're doing in schools, traditional schools, are not meant to benefit black students. Many black people are still under the belief that we send our kids to school, they get good grades, they go to college, they get a career. Which is something I think would be ideal, to have our kids sitting in class attentively listening and interested in the subject matter, no matter if it interests them or not, and getting good grades and passing all their tests. That's not a bad thing. But it's not a reality. What we have is zero tolerance policies that are kicking kids out of schools. We're involving police in school matters that are causing the children to become juvenile delinquents before they even get out of high school. We're setting them up for the school to prison pipeline. And we're sending them home every day to a broken community and not being a safety net in most of these urban schools. kids are getting gunned down in their uniforms, and it may not have been education that failed them. And maybe we can even say that education failed their murderers. So, even if you homeschool your kid, at one point your kid's going to have to go out there and deal with the rest of the world. Now there's still hope. We can get our kids in these classes, getting good grades, passing all their tests, wearing their cap and gown, and going to college, Yale, Harvard. And that would be a beautiful thing. We can get our kids into these wonderful career fields, making them all more slaves to the system with no knowledge of how to fix their communities, and never establishing any efforts to fix their communities while they spend 12 years in school. But I want people to remember that they should be interested in making their kids happy. When we make kids happy and we send them out to the community, we have a happy community. Happy people is what's important that we're making, not just well-educated people. So I'll leave you with Logan LaPlante.
When you're a kid, you get asked this one particular question a lot. It really gets kind of annoying. What do you want to be when you grow up? Now, adults are hoping for answers like, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a neurosurgeon. You adults and your imaginations. Kids, they're most likely to answer with pro skateboarder, surfer, or Minecraft player. I asked my little brother, and he said, seriously, dude, I'm 10. I have no idea. Probably a pro skier. Let's go get some ice cream. See, us kids are going to answer with something we're stoked on, what we think is cool, what we have experience with, and that's typically the opposite of what adults want to hear. But if you ask a little kid, sometimes you'll get the best answer. Something so simple, so obvious, and really profound. When I grow up, I want to be happy. For me, when I grow up, I want to continue to be happy, like I am now.